Becky and her canine companion, Diego, are introduced to their latest foster family, the Gibbs. The family greets them warmly, expressing excitement about Becky's enrollment at school. The household exudes happiness, and after dinner, the foster mother guides Becky to her room, advising her to feel at ease. But as soon as the door shuts behind her, Becky sneaks out of the room. Later, Becky reflects on her past, revealing the tragedy of her father's murder 4 years ago, and has now been living with Mrs. Elena for a year. The next morning at breakfast, Elena asks if she slept well, but Becky admits she struggled with haunting memories of her parents. Elena, on the other hand, shares that she slept soundly. Like a baby. The two women exchange gratitude. Elena mentions she's thankful for life, her novel Oswell, and Becky's presence. At work, Becky encounters a customer who calls her "Sweetheart," asking for more buttered toast. Becky points to her name tag, reminding him of her actual name, then takes her break before clocking out. Back at home, Becky and Elena play a word puzzle. During the game, Elena shares that she had 4 brothers, though only one remains alive. This prompts Becky to reflect aloud on how she never asked Elena about her past. Elena replies that as long as Becky stays focused on what matters, the details of her history are unimportant. Meanwhile, the radio announces the arrival of a dangerous group called the Noble Men, known for wreaking havoc wherever they go. While Becky is on shift, 3 men enter the diner and begin taunting her. One mocks that Becky's mother was a dancer at a strip club and hints they'd enjoy her company. Becky keeps her composure and calmly escorts them to the waiting area. As they sit, the men discuss their plot to assault Senator Hernandez after meeting with their leader, Daryl. However, one of them, Anthony, insults Becky again while ordering coffee. Becky nonchalantly serves their drinks, accidentally spilling hot coffee onto Anthony. At the end of her shift, the men spot her leaving and decide to follow. That night, while Becky is in her room, she examines a key left by her father, deep in thought. Suddenly, strange noises downstairs grab her attention. Anthony covers her mouth from behind. She heads him, and Diego charges to her aid, only to be struck with a bat by DJ, another man in the group. The men restrain Becky, holding her at gunpoint, and order her to sit down. A third man joins, confused, saying they were only supposed to intimidate her, not escalate things. Elena bursts in, brandishing a gun. She commands the men to drop their weapons and leave the house. Reluctantly, the group starts to comply, but Anthony stealthily retrieves a pistol from his waistband and shoots Elena in the head. Becky screams in horror, rushing to attack, but one of the men slams her into the wall, knocking her unconscious. When Becky regains consciousness, she crawls over to Elena's lifeless body, overwhelmed with grief. In the silence, she realizes Diego is missing. Meanwhile, the 3 men retreat to a secluded house deep in the woods. Anthony warns his companions to keep quiet about Elena's death. One of them, Sean, voices concern that Becky might report them to the police, but Anthony silences him with a threat. Back at Elena's home, Becky finds old photos and mementos, giving her foster mother a modest burial. With a heavy heart, she thanks Elena for everything and promises to rescue Diego. She collects supplies, sets traps, and puts on an old jumpsuit, preparing for what lies ahead. Recalling the men's conversation about Daryl, she investigates and narrows down 2 possible leads. The first turns out to be a frail, elderly woman, chain-smoking cigarettes. Becky knows immediately she's not the Daryl she's looking for. The second lead proves correct. She spots a familiar flag outside the house. Inside, the group shares a meal as Daryl leads them in a prayer. Afterward, they eat their meal, referred to as twig, and DJ brings up the topic of ephemerid, though he clearly misunderstands its meaning. Twig corrects him, just as Daryl confronts Sean for not eating and demands he remove his hood at the table. Suspicion lingers in the air. Daryl asks how the group acquired the dog, and they lie. When Sean excuses himself to use the restroom, Becky seizes the opportunity to slip inside through an open window. She discovers documents outlining the group's plan to attack the town hall and takes photographs for evidence. While she hides under a sofa, Daryl questions Sean about his commitment to the Noble Men, and shows him a flash drive containing the names of secret operatives. Daryl reminisces about his military days, recounting how he had to eliminate a fellow soldier to protect their unit's mission. Daryl grows suspicious when he notices the open window but is distracted by his companions calling him back to the table. Becky sneaks out, fleeing to a nearby warehouse where the group stores their weapons. She surveys their arsenal, preparing for the confrontation to come. Later, Becky calls Daryl, unsettling him and his men. Sean tries to confess the truth, but Anthony quickly downplays the situation, saying they only took a dog. Daryl orders them to return the dog, and Anthony volunteers to handle it himself. He calls out to Becky, pretending to offer Diego, but she lures him deeper into the forest. Anthony follows, only to stumble into one of Becky's pit traps. As he begs for mercy, Becky retrieves his weapon, leaving him tied. When the rest of the group hears a knock on the door, Daryl opens it to find Anthony bound with the explosive. Before anyone can react, the grenade detonates, killing Anthony. Sean vomits at the gruesome sight. Back inside, Daryl grows paranoid, suspecting DJ and Sean of betrayal. Sean finally confesses that they killed Elena and stole Becky's dog. Realizing the full extent of their leader's violent plans, Sean decides to quit, but Daryl kills him on the spot. Turning to DJ, Daryl demands loyalty, and DJ reluctantly agrees to stay. Becky calls again, taunting Daryl. She reveals she knows about their plot to attack the town hall, throwing Daryl into a frenzy. Twig searches for Becky but falls victim to one of her arrows. Furious, he chases her through the woods but stumbles into another trap. Becky confronts him, demanding the name of his son. When Twig answers, Adolf, Becky is enraged and slashes him repeatedly before she is overpowered and captured. Becky wakes tied to a chair as Daryl and the elderly woman, Daryl Sr., interrogate her. They demand the flash drive, but Becky refuses, using it as leverage. Daryl Sr. offers Becky a place in their group, but she declines. When Daryl Sr. threatens Diego, Becky frees one hand and strikes Daryl with pepper spray. Daryl Sr. draws a gun, warning Becky not to act rashly. But when she aims at Diego, Becky hurls a knife, killing her. Daryl chases Becky through the forest, firing wildly. She leads him into her final trap, watching as he plummets into a deadly pit. Taking back her father's key from Daryl's corpse, Becky returns to rescue Diego. However, Daryl Sr. isn't entirely dead. She sends Diego to finish the job as Becky looks on, unflinching. The next day, Becky is approached by a CIA agent, who reveals they've dismantled multiple cells of the noblemen using the stolen flash drive. Impressed by Becky's skills, the agent offers her a position in the agency, making her the youngest recruit ever. In a final scene, DJ assumes he has escaped justice, until he spots a police car approaching. The officer steps out, revealing herself to be Becky. Without hesitation, she draws an RPG and fires,